biggest beneficiaries of that. Thermax trading about 2% in the green at the moment. Ashish Bhandari, the MD and CEO, live with us on today's show. Good morning. Like I was just talking about, the capex cycle theme is certainly playing out. The government is doing its bit. It's seeming like the private sector is also doing its bit. We've seen capacity utilization for India Inc. at around 75%. Speaking for Thermax specifically, can you share with us, have you seen a big uptick in your order book?
A very good morning to you, Nayantara, and to the rest of the ET team. Yes, we have been seeing an uptick in our order book. And that is not just now. That trend has been going for the last 4+ quarters, right after the COVID recovery. At first, it was a bit of a V-shaped recovery, but now we have gone well beyond the V now.
Like I was saying, the capex cycle turnaround, you're one of the big beneficiaries of that. Thermax, year to date, the stock price is up by nearly 40%. You're saying that the order book uptick has been going on for some time now. But I was hoping that could you help us understand the new orders? Are they primarily from the government, public sector undertakings, states, or are you also seeing similar performance from the private sector? Just trying to understand on ground whether the private sector announcements are primarily just announcements or are they being executed too?
Antara, I would say it's the private sector is spending, and I'll say why that is the case. The headlines are about the steel industry, the cement, the big refining, petrochemical companies. The interesting part has been the strength we have seen from the broader segment. And Thermax works with nearly 140 distributors all across the country. And we cater to segments as varied as tire, rubber, textiles, pharma, food, all kinds of industries that make up the breadth of India's industrial segments. And across all of these segments, there has been growth. And on the channel side, for now, probably 4 out of our last 5 quarters have been 4 out of our best 5 quarters in the history of our channel business. So we are seeing continued growth, not just on the big headline numbers, but this is private spending driven both by need for diversifying energy options like cleaner energy, biomass, waste to energy, but also by greenfield new projects coming up.
Right. But Ashish, could you quantify this? Could you tell me what is the mix between government and private orders?
See, it's for us, the number is more like 75-25, where 75% of our orders are in a typical quarter are private orders. 25 are driven by some PSU-based spending. We do not do as much work with state governments. We do practically no business with municipalities. And when we talk about the central government, it's through PSUs that could be NTPC, IOCL, ONGC, and the like. With some of them, the government projects tend to be bigger in value. So you will see ups and downs, but in a typical quarter, I would say it's 75-25, with 25% driven by government spending, 75 by private sector.
Sure. Ashish, when we talk about international orders, I understand that they account for 20% of your order book. Is there any impact on your order book considering the slowdown in Europe and US, which is feared?
So our international percentage is more like 30% across our portfolio. And in both of these cases, we haven't seen a slowdown yet. In Europe, where we have 2 plants, both of our plants are actually seeing increased order activity because as Europe looks to decouple from Russia, many of our plants which run on biomass, alternate fuels, electricity are actually seeing uptick in orders. The challenge that we have is that commodity prices there have gone up quite substantially and trouble in finding suitable labor because that business was flat for many years and is now suddenly seeing an uptick. So the challenge is more on delivery. For our US business, there are some pressures, but our chemicals business, which sells quite a bit in the US, our market shares are so low that the larger drive around how do we increase penetration, how do we improve our share, is more of a theme than what is the overall market size at. Yeah, the market is still very, very big, and we are a much smaller part of the overall pie. So in neither case, I would say there is any big signs of slowdown. Clearly, though, India is growing much faster than any of our international businesses right now. The domestic growth is a larger part of the story.
Now, Mr. Bhandari, in 2020 and 2021, we heard so much about ESG, going green as the future and the near future. But that all seems to have changed. We've seen the global energy shock. It was exactly a week ago that India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said that India is also part of the jolt and would have to rely more on coal and thermal power longer than it thought it would need to. Having said that, what will it mean for Thermax? Thermax, where 70% of your revenue still comes from building thermal capacity. Is that the way you're also going to move forward, rely more on that, or are you going to use maybe this interim period to focus more on renewable, going green, ESG?
So, Nayanthara, I would say the opposite. Yes, 70% of our business is actually driven by non-fossil fuel based applications. And we haven't done a utility based thermal power plant for quite some time. Yeah, and if India comes out and says that I'm going to build 5 more ultra supercritical power plants, I don't think that is Thermax's sweet spot, nor would we be actively looking at those projects. Our focus is industrial customers, the need for those industrial customers, and how that energy equation is changing. And that energy equation is distinctly and definitely moving towards more energy efficiency, more fuel flexibility, and more renewables. And that's where we are. Yeah, in places such as biomass, we have done a lot of work. And if you look at below our big orders, a big chunk of our growth has been driven by this segment. We are doing a lot of work in waste to energy, municipal solid waste, doing very interesting applications with water, with biomass. Now, increasingly, we have a play on the solar side as well, actively looking at other opportunities. So our focus is entirely on energy efficiency, renewables, helping customers bridge energy availability with energy sustainability.
Right. Ashish Bhandari, thank you so much for joining us today and throwing color on what exactly is happening on ground. Private sector capex is picking up a confirmation that is coming in from Thermax. Not at all interested now in critical thermal power capacity building, confirming that India Inc. is also moving towards more efficient usage, as is being seen with the order book of Thermax, the stock higher by 40% year to date.